For the opposition and the debate as a whole.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to talk about 3 main points today, which are how this proposition doesn't work, talking about contraception first of all. Secondly, I'm going to talk about rights. I've got some different views on the proposition to that. And then I'm going to talk about the burden on the state. Firstly, I've got a bit of rebuttal, but most of it will be weaved into my speech. Okay, yeah, you said yourself, I'm just going to call you up on this, the previous speaker, because you said there's nothing you can do about under 16 months, and we quite agree. But what we're going to say is, just from a practical level, to get this out of the way, if you can't control under 16s non-mentally ill people having babies, you're not going to, this proposition isn't going to be able to stop people with a mental age of under 16 having babies. They simply won't take the pills. You can't shove them down your throat. You haven't said how you're going to do that. And if you are, that's a really bad thing. That's what I'm going to talk about in harms. And even if you do, if you're giving them the pill, but you're not stopping them having sex, which is another problem. You talked about how they're having sex is a bad thing, but this prop doesn't solve that problem. What would is, as my partner suggested, things like education and more pastoral care. Anyway, also this talked about rights, which I found really, really hilarious on this side, because you're not recognising that these people are vulnerable and that they actually need more help, and it's the state's job to help them. It's the state's job to protect everyone and to give them help. And what you're doing is you're not caring for them. You want to sterilise them. You want to stop them having more children, and you just want to no, I'm going to tell you later why that's a bad thing. Okay, you're talking about eugenics there, that's a very bad thing. Anyway, that's the information, so I'm not going to talk about that, don't worry. Children as a burden, yeah, interesting idea. That's going to be weaved into my third point about burden on the state, of which there isn't one, because it's the state's job to care for its citizens, okay? No, thank you, Ollie. Okay, yeah, nice one. What do proposition need to do today? You need to, okay, we both agree that there, I think both sides agree that there is a potential danger with mentally ill women, and that they need help. Yes, they need help. They don't need more drugs. They don't need drugging. They don't need silencing, and they don't need to stop them breeding. That's all your proposition does. No. Okay. So I've talked about that. Right. My first point: how this proposition taking contraceptives won't work. Freddie has already beautifully talked about the practical side to this, and how they're just simply not going to take the pills. Even if they do, they're still going to have sex, and that's one of the problems you were talking about. And your prop doesn't solve it. No. So this is just a terrible way of going about it. I don't know how you can't see that. You're drugging them up with hormones, as Anthony said, is a really bad thing, and which they might not take on a practical level. And even if they do, you're neglecting all the other things which might be more expensive and more effort to do. No. Like education, social services, pastoral care, even single-sex wards, as was suggested, it was laughed at, but it's a much better solution. It would also be cheaper on the economic front. No, thank you. So you're not, because this isn't going to stop them having sex and they're just simply not going to take the pills if they don't want to, that's just a basic practical level, this prop falls. Anyway, second point, rights. We think on this side rights are quite important, even if you are mentally ill. You've just shunned these people as subhuman from what we can hear. I mean, you didn't even have to say, you literally did say, you were hearing when you said, yeah, we'll stop them breeding, we want to get rid of them. If you can't see how that is a bad thing, I think the audience do, they look horrified. No, thank you. Madam Speaker, you should be horrified. Okay, because these people do have rights. And it's the state's role to protect everyone, yes.
Don't you realize that we're not trying to get rid of these people? We're letting them have full, wonderful rights. We just don't want them.
Lovely. Just lovely. Shut up. Lovely. You just won't let them have a family. You just won't let them have a fulfilled. No, you don't want them to have a family. You don't want them to have a proper fulfilled life. That is what you said. Don't try and take it back now because you know you're wrong. Okay. Right. No, thank you. Also, I'm just going to talk about this idea of a punishment, which we thought was an excellent point. You're punishing these people who are born or biological, whatever, have this mental deficiency. It's not their fault. Why are you punishing them when you should be helping them, which is the state's actual role? They haven't done anything wrong. Also, you've got no proof that they'll be bad parents. That's been bad. No. You've assumed they'll be bad parents. You have not said why. Sit down. Okay, so you failed to properly demonstrate that. We've heard a lot about how they're different. Please clarify how they're different. You haven't done that down the table. No, thank you. Yes, they're mentally ill. That doesn't mean they'll be bad parents. That doesn't mean they don't deserve care. That doesn't mean they don't deserve a role in society. Thank you. Okay, I need to quickly get through this now. So, you're violating a woman's body, that's what we're talking about, which is a really big harm, previous speaker. I'm going to talk about the harm principle now. You are violating the state, this is about the state taking control on a person's body by drugging them, by forcing them not to have a child. That is a harm, and also, more on this harm thing, they're not, by having sex and by having children potentially, they're not technically harming any other members of society, whatever you say about, burden on the state, which brings me nicely to my third point. These people, this is a violation basically of state's power. It's just the state wielding its power to do the easiest, sort of quickest, brutish solution without actually looking at any care, any rights, little silly things like that. They don't seem to concern you. They do concern us, however. This idea, that the state is there to protect every single citizen. I have reiterated throughout the speech because we think it's important. I've talked about rights and I've talked about how this won't work. But even if it did work, which it never would, because I would have told you practically how it would work, it is not a desirable motion. It's a horrible motion that ignores things like rights, things like society, all those nice things that we on the opposition stand for. For these reasons, I beg you to oppose this.